just inside of a sensor dead leg, or an area where it couldn't flow through, and then it ignited. We did not perform that cleaning process on the rocket supporting today's mission, and all 9 Merlin engines, which were test fired on the pad just last week, are looking healthy ahead of flight. Prior to today's launch, the vehicle was housed in our hangar at Launch Complex 39A until about 24 hours ago, when the rocket, along with the Starlink payload, was rolled out to the pad and raised vertical. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle that you can see there, that is the first stage. You can actually see the soot markings left over from its last flight. The first stage is what accelerates the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere to the edge of space with the help of 9 Merlin engines at the base of the rocket. Today we'll be attempting to recover the first stage for the 4th time on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, which you can see there. And it's currently stationed about 350 nautical miles northeast off the Cape. Above the first stage is the second stage, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine, which ignites after the first stage separates. The second stage is what will carry the Starlink satellites into an elliptical orbit above the Earth's surface. From there, they'll use their propulsion systems to move up to their operational altitude of 550 kilometers. Falcon 9 began loading propellants at T-minus 35 minutes. And as a reminder, we use a rocket-grade kerosene, or RP1, as our fuel, and super-chilled liquid oxygen, or LOX, as our oxidizer to power the Falcon 9. Currently, RP1 and LOX are nearly fully loaded on both stages, and LOX will continue to be topped off right up until the last minute of the countdown. The stack of 60 Starlink satellites is safely enclosed inside of the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which you can see there, that pointed cone at the very top of the rocket. This protects the satellites from aerothermal heating, aerodynamic loads, and contamination during ascent. Once we reach the vacuum of space, we will jettison the fairing as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit. We won't be attempting to catch the fairing halves in our nets today, as our boat and fairing software are undergoing upgrades, but weather permitting, we will try to recover them from the water using our recovery ships Miss Tree and Miss Chief. And there's a live view from one of those ships. So as you can see, the water is looking a little rough, so stay tuned.
Looking pretty flat.
Now, if you've been tracking the lead up to today's launch, you know that the weather has been a watch item for the last several days, with tornado warnings moving through the area. Our rocket and payload, however, were in the hangar as the storm passed, so we didn't see any adverse impacts as a result of that weather. And today, it's looking like a beautiful day for a launch. So with that, the vehicles, satellites, weather, and range are all looking good for an on-time liftoff just a few minutes from now.
Look at that flat horizon.
As I mentioned at the top of the webcast, SpaceX and NASA are now targeting May 27 for Falcon 9's launch of Crew Dragon's second demonstration mission, or Demo 2 as we like to call it. This will be the first time that a commercially built spacecraft will launch people to the space station, and the first time in nearly 10 years that the U.S. has launched astronauts into space from U.S. soil. Demo
And
2
his
is
deadly
an
wound
end-to-end
was
flight
healed.
test from launch to docking to splashdown, and it is the final major milestone for SpaceX's human spaceflight system to be certified for NASA for operational crew missions to and from the International Space Station. Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley will be the first 2 NASA astronauts to fly aboard Crew Dragon after completing countless hours of training, both at SpaceX and at NASA's training facilities. Both the spacecraft and the launch vehicle are at the Cape and undergoing preparations, and as you may have seen on social, Falcon 9 is getting a special paint job for the Demo 2 mission. That's right, NASA has brought back the famous worm logo. As you can see the logo painted on the Demo 2 Falcon 9 booster in this picture. The worm was brought back to mark the return of human spaceflight on American rockets from American soil with the Demo 2 mission.
You guys, that's why I've been so, covering these launches, because that Demo 2 mission, that's the first mission in 10 years that has launched astronauts from American soil. And in the book of Revelation, one of the heads on the beast had a deadly wound. and his deadly wound was healed, and that's what I think that is that launching from astronauts from the U.S. again. I don't know why, but that's just because that's what I get from those visions of that John and Daniel shared with us.
It's a clear, beautiful, gorgeous day out there. The first stage should finish prop loading at T-minus 3 minutes, and the second stage at T-minus 2 minutes. And as I mentioned earlier, liquid oxygen is going to continue to top off. Stage at T-minus 2 minutes. And as I mentioned earlier, liquid oxygen is going to continue to top off up until just before liftoff. At T-minus 60 seconds, be sure to listen for the call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. That means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown.
Okay, I want to explain something really quickly before we get to like the 2-minute mark. Ezekiel prophesied of these things, of these launches. Okay, what is this rocket going to do? This rocket is going to launch into the air, just straight up into the air, and it's going to get going really fast, and then the fairings are going to come off, and then it's just going to let go of those satellites. It's just going to let them go, because what's happening is they're going into the firmament, and they're catching a ride on the path of the angels. So that's Ezekiel chapter 5, verse 11. Wherefore, as I live, saith the Lord God, surely because thou hast defiled my sanctuary with all thy detestable things, and with all thine abominations, therefore will I also diminish thee, neither shall mine eye spare, neither will I have any pity. This is what this is. This is blasphemy. It is an assault on God's tabernacle and those who dwell in heaven. So, all right, I'll be done talking till whatever.
Stage 2 lock sword is closed out. Falcon 9 is in startup.
LDs go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 pitching down range.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Reporting telemetry
As
nominal.
you can see, Falcon 9 has had a successful liftoff from pad 39A. Moments ago, we throttled the engines down and we'll throttle back up just in a second for preparation for Max Q. Max Q stands for maximum aerodynamic pressure, which are the highest stresses that the vehicle will see during ascent.
Maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Now coming up in about a minute, we will have 3 events happening back to back. First is main engine cutoff, or MECO. This is where all 9 M1D engines will shut off to slow the vehicle down in preparation for the second event, which is stage separation. This is where the second stage will separate from the first stage, with stage 1 making its way back down to Earth for landing, and stage 2 kicking off that third event that I mentioned, which is SES1, or second engine start 1. This is where the MVAC engine will light up and propel the second stage along with the Starlink satellites to orbit. Expecting MECO to occur in about 30 seconds.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
Successful MECO. Successful stage sep. And it appears we have reignited or ignited that second stage engine for SES1. Now we're just a few seconds from fairing deploy. Again, this fairing has flown before on a previous mission. Grid fins are opening up.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And we have fairing separation. We have successfully reused this fairing. And now those halves are making their way back down to the sea where hopefully we can scoop them up. So on the left side of your screen you have stage 1, which is making its way down to the drone ship. And on the right, you have stage 2, that MVAC engine burning with 250,000 pounds of thrust. The grid fins appear to be fully deployed at this point. Now, while stage 2 continues on with the primary mission, stage 1's got its own plans. It's going to execute 2 burns prior to landing. The first is the entry burn. That's where we will reignite 3 of the M1D engines, which will help slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. Shortly thereafter, we'll have a second burn, which we call the landing burn. This is a single engine burn that brings the vehicle's velocity down rapidly in order to land safely on the drone ship. At the same time, during that burn, you'll see the landing legs that are currently folded up along the side of the rocket are going to deploy. MVAC is looking good right now. It looks a little overexposed on that image there, but we can still see the plume coming out, and we're still hearing good data. So while we're 2 minutes away from entry burn, just a note on these Starlink satellites, these 60 will be joining the constellation that's already on orbit. As we mentioned, we've launched more than 360 satellites. And again, these are to provide high-speed, low-latency internet to people down on that globe that you see on the right side of your screen. The MVAC engine on stage 2 is at full power and on a nominal trajectory. Now, as stage 1 is making its way down, again, there are no engines burning while it's doing this. It's basically coasting using the grid fins to steer, and you can see those white puffs occasionally. That's cold nitrogen gas that is being used for attitude control, part of our ACS system, or attitude control system. Okay, that entry burn should be coming up here in about 15 seconds. Meanwhile, stage 2 continues on as planned.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
This burn goes for about 20 seconds. Four engines burning at once right
Stage
now.
2 continues to follow a nominal trajectory.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
All right, successful shutdown of that entry burn. Meanwhile, stage 2 is looking great. All right, full screen shine here. There we go. Now this burn on stage 2 is going to continue up until you hear the call out of SECO 1, or second engine cutoff 1. You're going to hear that pretty quickly after landing.
Stage 1 entry transonic.
All right, MVAC D is beginning to throttle down, getting ready for that second engine cutoff.
Stage 1 landing burn startup.
Entering terminal guidance.
All right, that landing burn has started. Let's see if we can see the plume in the view from the drone ship.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
There it is. Let's see. We have cheers. We have a rocket. Awesome. This is the 4th landing for this booster. And as you can hear, everybody here is super stoked to see it there. It's great. It's a gorgeous day. Gorgeous rocket. All right. And we have second engine cutoff on stage 2. And we are in a good orbit as well.
Nominal orbital insertion.
All right. So now stage 2 is going to coast in this orbit for a few minutes. And during this time, the stage will actually start to spin around its central axis, which gives the Starlink satellites the momentum that they need in order to space themselves out over time after they deploy. We're going to take a quick break and come back here at T plus 14 minutes.
Well, there we go. So now, I'm going to try to catch these on film tonight. I won't live stream it because I don't really have a good way to do that. But, like I said a year ago, or almost a year ago, flat earthers need to start learning about reality. And learning that there is a place above our heads of darkness. So, if a person can acknowledge that there was darkness upon the face of the deep, it shouldn't be too hard to understand that that darkness is not a part of our world. It's not part of the earth. It's above the earth. And it's filled with evil spirits. Now, of course, NASA and Spacex, they don't know that. They're being deceived by those evil spirits into thinking that Earth is a globe. You see how they must have that globe, otherwise none of this works for them. None of it would work. So I wrote in the comments here, by her sorceries were all nations deceived. When I'm talking about her, I'm talking about that darkness. These 7 mountains burning with fire, the planets, 7 planets. That's what's riding on the beast. And what is the beast? The space station. So, I guess we got another few minutes to wait until. Oh, I made a funny. Let me put something on the screen for fun. Where is it? Oh, it's okay. You know how everyone's like, I've seen so many. You guys are gonna laugh. I've seen so many people driving in their cars wearing a mask and like gloves while they're in their own car with the windows closed, you know. And so where's my meme? Here's what I see. I see this. It's their pacifier. Makes them feel better. So there's that. Oh, did that show up? Did I do that on the right screen? I might not even have done that on the right screen. I don't know how I can even know. Oh, okay, it did show up on there, good. So yeah, when they deploy these satellites, they just let them go. They act like it's all precise. Like we get this trajectory and all this stuff. No, it's not like that. They have no idea what's happening when they launch a rocket, and you'll see this when they let go of the satellites. That's it. They just let them go, and they, like she was saying, they get the vehicle to turn on the center axis point to give so when they release them, that it gives it just enough momentum to spread apart, and that's why we see these Starlink trains being really tight together when they first launch. Like if I film them tonight, if the weather allows, then as the days go on, they spread out pretty much evenly, but not perfectly. But yeah, so
Welcome back to the webcast.
here we
for
go again.
Starlink. So far, we have had a
I gotta
successful
find my
mission
volume.
thus far. We've stage 1, ascent and landing, and stage 2 got the Starlink satellites into a good orbit and is now coasting and getting ready for deployment of those Starlink satellites. So we're going to listen in for the call out. It should come in about 30 seconds or so. We won't be able to see that right at that moment. We'll cut to the shot of the satellites deploying a little bit later, but in about 20 seconds we should hear the call out.
Payload deploy confirmed.
Okay, we just heard the call out for payload deploy. Now, as the satellites begin to separate over time, they're going to open up their solar array, and over the next, oh, there they go. All right, that's those 60 Starlink satellites. Look at that cool glow around them. Wow. Now, shortly after, as I was saying, after just coming up in the next, few hours or so, we're going to see the solar arrays deploy. And over the next days and weeks, the satellites will begin to distance themselves away from one another and use their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their operational orbit of 550 kilometers. Sorry, that image just is always so beautiful and catches me each time. Now, with that, it brings our webcast to a close. We'd like to thank the 45th Space Wing for providing range safety today and the FAA for licensing today's launch. You can follow our website and social media platforms for updates on our next missions and milestones. So until next time, be well, and we'll see you next launch.
So there it is. There's another bunch of junk in the sky. By the way, those will all be getting thrown down on your heads and our heads, whatever. I don't think I'm going to get hit by one, I hope. Yeah. I mean, literally. Just like they literally put them up there, they're going to literally come down because what goes up must come down in this world. And they are defiling God's sanctuary. And I don't care if you're one of these New Age people that says, the temple of God is my body. No, the temple of the Holy Spirit is your body, is your flesh, whatever you want to call it. But, whoops, sorry. I'm just trying to pause that. There we go. But the sanctuary of God is in heaven, up in the sky. And there's, if you're a Bible believer, then that's what you believe, because it says it, I don't know how many times, probably hundreds of times in the Bible, that the temple of God is in heaven. In Revelation, it says it, I think 13 times it says that the temple of God is up in heaven, okay? So yeah, there you go. That was about all I wanted to do, was just kind of document this stupid thing. And I will try to catch them on my own above my house here, and I will upload that as soon as I do. But if you're a flat earther, I suggest not denying reality any longer and stop saying space is fake and start paying attention to what the signs in the heavens, because that's what this is. These are false signs and wonders being performed in opposition to God. So there you go. All right, guys, have a good day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging.